Good morning, everyone. So nice of you to attend our session today. The the session that we're going to be in is 50 tips, and we're going to have a really fast session. So there's just a ton of things to cover in 50-ish minutes. I highly encourage you to write your questions in the question panel of the webinar if you have any. I will try and leave some time at the end of the session for you to ask questions. But I also would hope that you might also note down your questions. My contact information will be at the end, and we can certainly get back in touch with you if you have questions on anything. Again, it's going to go super fast. Try and get 50 tips and show you the tips as opposed to just talk about them. So um, thanks again for joining us today. Looking forward to spending time with you. My name is Sandy Wickman. I'm a senior business consultant. I live in Austin, Texas. We have a lovely day today. It's like 75 and just beautiful and sunny. I hope it is nice where you are. I have about 21 years of GP experience. I've worked with LBMC for about a year and a half. Um, my focus has largely been in the process improvements, so using GP to its full functionality as well as focus on mixed mode manufacturing. So I have a lot of interest in and experience with the Horizons Manufacturing ISV and using inventory to its fullest. So before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and remove my headset for a moment and play the message from our sponsor. It's a 2-minute message from GPC Systems regarding Easy eBank Rec. Okay, our sponsor, GPC. So if you have any more information about their solution, the GPC Systems, be sure and visit their sponsor page on the Crowd Compass tool. Okay, so our agenda for today, 50 tips, but we're going to do it by topic. We're going to be doing our GP owners, so absolutely anybody who has GP can benefit from the first few. Then we'll look at GP user efficiencies, systems, smart lists. We'll split financials into financial setup and financial transactions, purchasing, sales, inventory, and then a grand finale. Sit tight, here we go. So starting with GP owners, anyone who uses GP needs to be able to know how to find your GP version. And then within this slide deck, which you can get either from the recording or by requesting it, these two links are the first of the three tips. The two links are where you can find the manuals that you can use for Dynamics GP now, and where you can give ideas and share ideas about things that you'd like to see in coming versions. So I'm going to go back and forth kind of between my slide deck and my GP and these links. So the GP application, I'm here in my GP 2018 R2, and in order for me to find my version, I can use the ability to go up to this question mark up here on the toolbar and go to About Microsoft Dynamics GP, which is the last selection, and it opens this window where I can see version information, I can see additional user information, and a number of the different ISVs can also be found here. So I have manufacturing included in my GP system, so that box pops up as well. Okay, the next two are actually links to two pages, so I'll open them both at once so we can get a quick peek at those. The first one is where you can find the documentation from GP. Which of course always loaded faster when I did it before the webinar. So this link, docs.microsoft.com with Dynamics, here's all of the manuals that you could use to be able to get information about your GP system, right? What's new, it's got each different version and what's new, and so forth. The second link is experience.dynamics ideas. So within this ideas page that it used to be called something else and they've changed the name of it, but this is where we're actually getting the opportunity at the bottom of this page to share ideas about GP. So you'll see that there's 617 links right now, and there's a whole bunch of really cool ideas, and you can go out and vote on the ideas so that they become a part of what happens for your next version of GP. Right? So some of them, you can even see how some of them have been planned, completed, they need votes, they're under review. Microsoft has done a really good job of including the suggestions from users in their new versions of GP, so it's really worth the opportunity to go look at this experience.dynamics.com and share your ideas with Microsoft of what you'd like to see in coming versions. Okay, our next set of tips is about user efficiencies. We're going to run through them quickly: how to remove the remembered wrong information, show required fields, the default sales document type, change your role, use the My Reports page, and big question, is it showing on your home page? Then we'll have navigation lists, using it as a task flow solution, and then reconcile the subledger to the general ledger. Okay, so GP user efficiency tips. Back here in my GP, I'm going to go to my inventory area page first, and I'm going to bring up an item. This item is silicone, but if I start typing and I didn't get as far as I wanted to, right, so now that's not a real item. So I can clear it, but next time I try and type something, I see that as part of what's remembered in that field. If I right-click it, I can remove that from the list. So your first tip, how to remove the wrong remembered information. Right-click, remove from the list. The next one, we're going to go to our GP button, and under User Preferences, we're going to look at how you can show the required fields on a window. So I'm going to move this one over here a little bit, and I'm going back to my item card, and in my items you can see the red bold fields. I'm setting that based on my user preferences, so again you have to be logged in as yourself, you can't set it for other users. And then click on the display button. And in the center section here, it's giving me a preview of how my window is going to look. On the left-hand side, I can pick what my blue underlined link fields look like. Excuse me. On the right-hand side, I'm picking what my required fields look like. So if I want it to be red in italic instead of red in bold, I can apply that with the Apply button, and now I get a preview of what my window would look like now with it as italic instead of bold. Okay. Save it, click OK, and that sets your required fields in your user windows. This user preferences also gives me the ability to be able to set my default sales document type. So when you go to the sales area page and start a sales transaction entry, by default, this field will come up to whichever default you select in that same user preferences window. So notice my default sales document type is set to order. Out of the box, it comes up as quote, but I don't really do quotes, so I have mine set to order. That means this opens to order every time, and I save myself a click. Okay. If by chance you have been at your company for a while and your role within the company has changed, you've moved from an accounts payable clerk up to an accounting generalist, you might want to choose to change your homepage role so that you've got the panes on your homepage that coordinate with your new role. You can do that by going to Customize this page, my upper right-hand corner, and then pick Change Role at the bottom of the window. Notice when I do, I get a message that says any of the customizations that I've made or quick links that I saved in the Business Analyzer are going to be removed. So that means your homepage is going to be fresh and new for you to start over with the things that relate to the role that you're going to pick. So in this window, you can pick your industry and your role based on the new role that you play at your company. If you just want to go take a look at what those options are, you can do that. You can still click cancel and it will keep all of the links that I had on my original homepage. Okay. The next tip was use the My Reports pane in your homepage, right? So here's my homepage, and down here is the My Reports section. So the first big question is, do you have the My Reports section saved? Are you able to see this? Because one of the great things about this is that any of the reports that I run on a regular basis and have saved my report option, I can have appear here automatically. So I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to go to my inventory area page and pick a report that I look at all the time. So under activity, I have my historical inventory trial balance. And if I click on silicone and modify, then this silicone item becomes my filter for my report. And I get all of this set up the way that I like it and save it. Now if I bring that silicone one back here and click on the My Reports button on the ribbon, I get to give it a name. So I can change this. It doesn't have to stay the way that it shows. That's my hit B for silicone. Okay. And I'll save it, close the windows, and now if I go back to my home page, look at that right there. And all I have to do is click on it once and the report generates. Typically you would want to have those go to the window as opposed to a printer. You can always print them from here once you get them to the window. But the My Reports, great opportunity for you to be able to get to those reports you print on a regular basis. Okay, next one is navigation lists and using it as a task flow solution. So I'm going to go to my purchasing area page, and under the purchase orders, I have one called purchase order expected deliveries. So let's assume that you are the person who works on the dock of your warehouse, and you need to know whether you're going to have a really busy day. There's lots of purchase orders that are going to be delivered today or not. So as a workflow tool, I can use these navigation lists to be able to help set the information about my day and know what to expect. So this navigation list has the required date set for all of my purchase orders. So assuming today is April 12th of 2027, I would know that all of these purchase orders here are set to be delivered today. I'd know kind of how busy to expect my day to be, and I also have an opportunity then to be able to coordinate back with my purchasing department and let them know whether any of these purchase orders didn't get delivered on the required date that we had set for the vendor. Now, this list gives me lots of options for being able to take action on them as well. So if I pick this first one that was due today, April 12th, down here at the bottom, I get a little bit of a snippet of the details that's on that purchase order. So when I look at it, I can see that there's five lines, which tells me that this actually is a blanket purchase order. So some part of this is supposed to be delivered today. Right? So I can get that information. I can know who it was coming from, right? What vendor was sending it to me. If I don't have enough information in this little snip at the bottom, I can also use the blue drill back to drill right into the inquiry window. Notice this is an inquiry window, not the entry window. So I haven't got, my purchase or my doc staff able to change purchase orders, but I give them the opportunity to inquire about the window, in which case, if my buyer IDs are diligent, they would also know who the buyer was and could be able to coordinate information with that buyer. If this is one that's been received, I can click on it. I can print the documents. I can take action to receive it. I can send an email. I can copy that to a new purchase order. There's just a whole ton of things that I can do while I'm right here in this same window. So great way to be able to help your staff be able to know what to expect for their day, get some details, and you will also notice that across on the right-hand side here, there's these are business analyzer little tools, but you can also in later versions use some Power BI snips to be able to put some information in there that give them visual cues about some of the information that you're selecting here. So it's changing based on the information that I'm selecting on the left-hand side of my screen. So that was that one, the navigation lists. And I'm going to go back to, let's see, my financial area page. And this time we're looking at how to reconcile subledgers to the general ledger. So subledgers including AR, AP, bank rec, and inventory. Those are all subledgers within your GP system. So on the financial area page in the routines section is reconcile to the GL. So I have a reconciliation here that I saved, number 1, and that was the date that I ran it, and I was doing a date range. I saved it to a file location, and I can see in this window what my subledger details are, my GL, and the differences, right? So I have a pretty reasonable difference between the two, depending on your tolerance level. But when I create a new one, the one trick to note here is you'll see that there's a value saved in this field in the output file. It's grayed out and looks like you can't choose anything else, but you can actually still click on the file folder, pick a new location, be sure you pick a shared location, and save a file with a new one to be able to open your file with. So let's see, I'm going to give it a new name. So this one, number 2, you get to choose which of your subledgers you're going to reconcile, payables, receivables, inventory, and bank rec. I definitely recommend the payables and receivables one. The inventory, your best choice is to use the HITB for your reconciliation to the GL, and bank rec to use the bank reconciliation. But based on what I'm going to show you in terms of functionality, where payables matches this accounts payable GL account, When I process this, it's actually going to create a Excel spreadsheet that has a number of different rows where the top part is anything that the system believes is unmatched. The next part is what's potentially matched. So on this side you have payables transactions, this side GL. And then anything that's actually matched. So you can imagine how easy it is to be able to find anything that's not matched between your subledger of payables to your general ledger, because it gives you this lovely spreadsheet to be able to look at the transactions and find something that may not have posted all the way through the GL that you can go make an entry for and make sure your subledgers are then in balance with your general ledger. Okay, let's go back to our slide deck and see where we're going to go next. So the next group of tips is about the system level. So field level security, taking the company offline, and sending users a message. Again, some of these are related to the version of GP that you're using. The first one we're going to talk about is field level security. So one of the things that I, as a controller, might not want anyone to be able to delete general journal entries without first making sure that really is what they wanted to do. So I'm going to start this one by showing you that if I go to my general journal entries and I start doing a transaction, and realize that I've got something wrong and I really don't want this transaction, when I click on the delete button, I have to put in a password now in order to delete this general journal entry. This is not standard functionality. This is field level security, and what it's asking for is the password for JE delete. So you do have to have security access to be able to get to this function, to be able to set it up. But I'm going to go to my administration area page, and in the setup section, is field level security. Sorry, didn't see it there for a second. You may have a system password that you have to put in there, which is always a good idea. But you'll see here in this window that I have created this field level security called delete journal entry, and you have to create a password. So if I click on it and double click on it, it opens the parameters where you set up field level security. So you first start by setting which window it's on. So it's on my general transaction entry on the delete button. And then I've set it for a security mode to use a password after. So remember, I clicked on the delete button and then it asked for the password. And then you create the password. So I called it JE delete and gave it the password here. Then I can apply this to any users or all users. Right now I have it applied to my user. I'm logged in as the SA user in this Fabricam company. And effectively, I've added functionality to my GP system with field level security. Okay. The next one is taking the company offline. So again, I'm on my administration area page, and this time I'm in the utilities section down here under system and take company offline. So if you've got maintenance things that you need to do, it's a possibility for you without your IT team to take the company offline. When I click on my company and insert it, anyone who tries to log into the Fabricam company while this company is in the offline companies area is going to get this message when they try to log on. This is the default message. You can also click on the custom button and it'll give you the ability to put in your own custom message so that when people try and log in, they will get that message. So if you have an idea about what time people can start using that GP company again, you can put that into your message and then they'll know when to come back and try again. When you're ready for it to come back off online, you click on it on the right side and remove it from the list and click OK. The next tip, number 13, is about sending users a message. So this send users message is the ability to send any or all users a message while they're logged into GP. So you can imagine that if they're not sitting in front of their GP, they're not going to see the message. This is not sending them an email. Okay? But I can uncheck any of the users I don't want to send to, or I can click the top box and it'll send to all of them. Then I can send them a message or I can send a task with a reminder. So this notification message is for users who are currently logged into GP, and I can tell them anything I need to, right? So I can say, right? And when I click the send button, it takes a couple of seconds, so I'm not actually going to wait for it to happen. It takes somewhere in the neighborhood of between 10 seconds and a minute, depending on your system, for it to actually send the message. But the users will get a pop-up box on their desktop, regardless of what other windows they're on. They'll get a pop-up here saying, please close out of GP. So you can send them a message right here inside of your GP so that they know it's time for them to log out or take other action. Okay, our next set is about smart lists. And as you might imagine, smart lists, one of our favorite topics. We have a whole bunch of things to talk about in smart list tips. We're going to use smart lists to identify and correct any posting accounts, which helps very much when it comes to year-end closing. We're going to look at the hide, show, and expand for the favorites pane. A date value option that's new in 2018 October release. And then Smart List Any field, Smart List debits or credits to find an amount, Smart List changing column header names, selecting columns by their type instead of by the words of the columns, and use a Smart List favorite with a reminder for something like expired material. Okay, so number 14, here we go. So the first one is using Smart List to identify and correct any of the posting. So I'm open my smart list. By the way, I have my smart list set onto my toolbar here. That's a tip that I'm happy to share with you. If you'd like to send me your email, I'll send you how to put those up there at the top. My email will be at the end of the session. So I'm going to open the folder next to financial and the one next to accounts. And I've created two that I've saved for the sake of time to show you the GL account setup review for balance sheet and P&L accounts. So before I ever run my year end, I run these two different favorites, and I'll show you in the search criteria what I have is my account types are posting accounts. The main segment is between $1,000 and $39.99. So typically your account ranges represent the sections of your financial statements. So the balance sheet ones are together, the P&L ones are together. So in my accounts, this main account range represents typical balance sheets. And then my posting type is not equal to balance sheet. So when I run this, I actually get no results. That's good. That's what I'm hoping for. But the other one, similar sort of search, posting accounts, but this is the 4,000 to the 99.90 accounts, and the posting type is not P&L. So what I find here is I've got 11 accounts where the posting type is set to balance sheet, but the account numbers are within my P&L range. So I would definitely want to fix these before I take action on my year end, because remember, any of the balance sheet ones are going to close to retained earnings and the P&L ones are going to clear the balances. So we want to make sure that our posting types are set correctly. That was 14. The hide, show, and expand the favorites pane. So this part over here, this left-hand side, is what's called the favorites pane. So I have this little caret. It goes both ways. It opens and closes that caret, that favorite pane, and I can use that. But what if I just want this part to stay open all the time? If I go to Smart List and down to Favorites pane, this switch down here for Enable Auto Hide is a toggle. So if I click on it, it turns it off. Now if I go back there and look, it's not marked now. But if I go to a different Smart List, you'll notice this stays open. It does not auto hide anymore. So I can toggle back and forth. But I also, in that same area, have the ability to increase or decrease the width of that favorite pane. So watch that left-hand side. If I increase the width, it's wider now. If I decrease, it's a little shorter. So you can set that to be any size that you choose based on your user preferences. That's number 15. Number 16, there's a date value in the October 19 release of GP that's new and available to be used. So I'm going to go to the account transactions and I'll pick, so within this in the 2019 version, and I'm sorry I didn't get my upgrade completed to be able to show it to you, but in this upgraded version, when you go to the date fields, there's new choices here for date fields, and I will show it to you in a screenshot in a second. But what it equates to is the ability to be able to set the dates on some things like prior period, prior month. So if you are running smart lists at month end to validate your month end close periods, if you have this set to prior period, you'll get last month's results and you don't have to change the dates. That gives you the ability to use your smart list favorites ongoing without having to make any updates to them. So those new features are available in 2019. Okay, Smart List, this is for any field. There's called a feature called any field. I'm going to go to my fixed assets and fixed assets and choose just the star, which is all of them. And when I click on the search and want to pick a column, notice there's a field name called any field. Have you ever looked at this one? Any field. So any field is equal to, and I'm just going to put a value in, 400. And click OK. And I actually get, when it's completed, I actually get 3 assets. But there's nothing on this list that looks like 400. When I click on my search and add all the rest of the columns, so I'm going to get the same 3 results, but when I go over here to the other side, look at my structure ID. It looked through all the fixed asset records and gave me anything that had 400 in it. So imagine how useful that could be if somebody says, you know, I'm sure it's dated 2025, or I'm sure that, you know, at the time when someone set this up, it had a user field that had 12 in it, right? So you can look for things in a variety of different ways using that Smart List any field. Okay, Smart List where a debit or credit amount is a particular dollar amount. So in my account transactions, we don't want it to keep going on forever. What we want to know is, there was a transaction that was done sometime in the last year. I know it was for $2,200, but I don't know exactly when it was booked. So if I click on the search, and I'm going to look for the credit amount is equal to $2,200, or the debit amount is equal to $2,200. And the search type changes from match all to match one or more. And then click OK. And it's going to go through all of my transactions and bring back any where either the debit or the credit are $2,200. I may have a list of them, and in which case I can obviously use this to be able to open the transaction and see which one of them it is that I was looking for. So debit or credit, any field, debit or credit amount fields. Changing the column header names. So when I'm looking at these columns, if there's something that I want it to look different than it does, I have the ability to change those column names. So I'm going to go back to my fixed assets, and one of the columns says SUF. I'm going to go to columns, and on the left-hand side, I have the ability to type over here. The original name stays the same, but now what I see is the word spelled out in suffix. Okay, next one, number 20, smart lists, selecting columns by type. So I'm going to click on the search again, click the search button. This second column here is type. So I can pick things based on the type, not just based on the values. So if I were looking for a date field, I can find all the types that have dates at the top and then be able to pick the rest of them. This one has a short list of them, but all sorts of different types exist in different sorts of smart lists. Let's go to customers quickly. Where my search, I have several strings. But if I wanted to look for something that was a date type field, see, all of my date fields are now in a range instead of having to remember which one of those dates was it that I was looking for. They're all here together. Right? Makes finding things a little easier in your smart lists. And then the last one in smart list is how we're going to use a smart list as a favorite with a reminder. So on our home page, I've created 2 reminders. One of them is for my expired material, but right here on my reminders, I can get an instant feedback that says I have at least one lot of goods that are expired in my inventory, and I can see the number of records as it changes from one to any others. When I click on it, it opens the smart list favorite to show me what that list is. So I have inventory, item quantities, and expired, so this is my favorite. It's been set as a reminder so that it shows up right as soon as I log in, and I can go take action on my expired material. When that material no longer meets the criteria of this search, where the expiration date is greater than, you would probably set this to today's date, right? Have it set for current date. Then anything that's expired will show up on your list. Okay, deep breath. Grab a little sip of water. Next page. I mentioned that that 2019 release information, including the prior month, next month. So I've given you a screenshot here so that you have it available for you. The next group is our financial setups. Looks like I'm going to have to pick up the pace. Assigning names to fiscal periods, streamline account entry using aliases, unmark to allow account entry, reverse a historical year-end, and clean up account segments when processing year-end close. Okay, back in GP, assigning names to fiscal periods. So I'm going to go to my administration area page. In the setup under company is fiscal periods. If I want this to show January, not period 1, this can be February. You can type those values in here. Now when I open my inquiry for summary and look at an account, they show January, February instead of period 1, period 2. Woohoo! Streamline account entry using account aliases. When I enter a general journal entry, so financial area page, transactions general, when you click on this blue expansion button here, you can see the alias that's been set for a specific account. So you have to watch closely, because if I type dollars and S, which is an alias for an account, it automatically finds that account and populates the window. So if I've assigned aliases to any of my accounts, I click on the expansion button, put in the alias, and tab, and it automatically fills in the GL account. So all I had was 2 keystrokes instead of several to find the GL account when I was putting it in. Unmark to allow account entry on control accounts. So on my financial area page, in my accounts, for things like accounts receivable, see how I did that? I used my alias, typed in AR, clicked tab, and it found my accounts receivable account. In my accounts receivable account, I should unmark this allow account entry. That means that I will not be able to post a general journal entry to accounts receivable. Now, there are some considerations for third-party ISV products, but this will help keep your AR in balance with your subledger, because you can't book a general journal entry to accounts receivable without going to the subledger first. Reverse a historical year-end and the next one, which is cleaning up accounts, are both kind of together. So in my financial area page, under routines, is year-end closing. So this reverse historical year-end, again, it's based on your version, and you need to really be careful and thoughtful about how you use this. If you've closed a year that's prior to the most recent historical year, then you can use this reverse historical year to be able to reverse that closed year. If it's just the most recent historical year, you can book transactions to that without doing the reverse. But during the close process, you also have the ability to remove unused segment numbers now. So if there's segments that you haven't been using, it'll automatically clean those up for you when you run the year-end process. I'm going to go out here to my desktop and open an example. If you're not yet using the copy-paste feature for GP's journal entries, I think this is just magical. So it has to be in this sort of format in my Excel. But if I highlight that group of information, not the description titles column, but everything underneath it, and Control-C for copy, then if I go back to my general journal entries in GP, I'll fill in the top part, place my cursor here in the first blank, and then click paste, and that transaction that I had is now pasted into GP. Such easy things to do. Great stuff. Within this same window, I also have the ability to correct journal entries. So I'm going to delete this one. We don't really need this one to post. But I need to correct a journal entry. So I clicked on the correct button on the ribbon, and then I have 2 choices in actions. I can either back out a journal entry or back out and create a correcting entry. So I'm going to do a back out and correct, and I'm looking for journal entries in my current year. This is sample data, so 2027. And then I click the looking glass, and it gives me a list of all the posted transactions or journal entries for this year. So I can go find the journal entry, and I get 2 things. When I click on OK, there's 2 things happen. This is a completely gap compliant system. So it's going to book a journal entry that undoes the transactions that were on this entry. And then it'll give me a whole new journal entry number with a copy of the original bad data, so I can fix the data on the new one and make it correct. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the process, but that's the correct function for using that back out and correct. Okay, next one in my inquiry financial is account roll-up. Account roll-ups are really underutilized and really a cool thing. So I've created one called fixed assets here, and when I redisplay my list, what I see is each of my period balances with my actuals, the budget, and even my prior year information all in one view. So modifying those, I'm picking the columns, I'm picking the account range, and setting it up so that the inquiry gives me information about any group of accounts together in a single inquiry. So very similar to the summary, but using an inquiry instead. Okay. And then the last one in that group, and we're going to get to number 30, is in your inquiry, under checkbook balance, if you populate the date range first instead of picking the checkbook, it dramatically reduces the amount of time that's necessary to fill in this window. So pick your dates first, then pick the checkbook. Okay, next section.
Sandy,
Yes.
we do have a question in respect to the journal entry, the copy-paste journal entries.
Okay.
The question is, with copy-paste journal entries, do you not have to have zeros in the blank cells?
Okay, so typically I don't have any blank cells, right? So the data here, I did not have any zeros in there. If this is the blank cells they're referring to, then no, I don't have to have those. This pasted into my journal entry without any trouble.
Yep.
But I wouldn't want to extend it beyond that. I wouldn't want to include anything below or above to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we looked at those. Those were our other financial ones. And now we're on purchasing. Change the columns in the edit check window. I'm glad to hear that we only had that one question because I'm probably going to use up all of our time. If you have other questions, go ahead and type them in the question box and we may answer them by email afterwards. Okay, so in purchasing, change columns in the edit check window, setups. I think I'll just go ahead and demonstrate them as opposed to read them off to you. Okay, so back to purchasing. Change the columns in the edit check window. When you're building an edit check batch, the columns over here include one called voucher number, which is really a GP voucher, not really very useful. So if you click on the columns, you can change that from voucher number to document number. And now I'm seeing the vendor's document numbers. Makes it much easier to pick. Within my vendors, I can set up multiple purchases accounts. So on my accounts, the purchases accounts is by default what's going to show up on my purchases when I do accounts payable. If I want to have multiples, I can click on the ellipse button, that's the 3 dots, and add as many purchases accounts as I want to, and then I would check the default on transactions so that it does show up when I show the transactions. So multiple accounts. Edit transaction information including the remit to and the due to. So if I've accidentally keyed something in and given my document the wrong aging terms, the edit transaction information gives me the ability to be able to find transactions within my GP and change discount dates, due dates, PO numbers, and the description. I can't change GL posted fields, but I can change other fields. Update the 1099 information, purchasing, in the transactions pane, edit 1099 information. So my first vendor that has them is Beaumont, and all of these vouchers had these 1099 amounts. If, for example, part of that was reimbursement for expenses, I can change the amount here in this window. Move POs to history to shorten the list. So on purchasing, in routines, the remove completed purchase orders. Now, there's a word of warning here. If you have things set to keep history in your purchase order setup, then using this remove completed purchase orders simply moves them to history. But be sure and check your setup first. And what that does then is help make the list of lookups for open purchase orders much smaller. So you can use this as a month-end task to keep things efficient. Flag when a vendor has open POs. I think based on time, we're going to go back here and look at our sales ones, right? I think the one on the sales one that I think is the most impactful is the quick print. So I'm going to show you the quick print and the grand finale. And then we'll have just about 2 minutes left. So I'm sorry we didn't get a chance to get to all of them, but I'm going to show you the quick print in the sales group. In the sales transaction entry or in the inquiry, right, I can look in transactions by customer and I can look up the transactions for a customer, go to that invoice, and I'm using the keyboard to hit the keys Control Q, and once I have saved the setups for my quick print setup, and you only have to do this once, I'm going to print it to the screen and save it. Now, Control Q will automatically print my document, and I didn't have to go through click the print button, pick what I wanted, all those other steps that are necessary to typically print a sales transaction. I have set up my quick print to be able to print it with just the Control Q settings, right? So really helpful one in sales. And then the last one, which I called the grand finale, right? The one thing that I think has taken far too long for Microsoft to really be able to get into our release, but it is now in the GP 2019 or that October 2019 release of GP, the fiscal period setup window now actually shows up expanded like this. You can see all 12 periods without having to expand or draw down the window. Isn't that great? And this actually came from some of those suggestions. So to tie it all back to the start of our session today, that takes us back to go and make those suggestions in that ideas link that I showed you at the start so that people can get those new features that they want to use in their GP. So how did we do? Please don't forget to do your session summary surveys. And I invite your feedback as a presenter. I'm sorry I didn't get to all 50 of our tips. Would be happy to share that with you in a one-on-one if you want to get in contact with me. There's my email address and my information. You're certainly happy to encouraged to reach out to me if there's something more that I can explain on any of the tips that we've seen today. So I will say thanks very much. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the conference.